Stephen sprinted through the hallways of the underground facility, frantically contacting soldiers and engineers he knew could be trusted. Over his comm, he barked orders. Daniels, Chen, Mikhailov, suit up and grab weapons from the armory. Meet in Sector 4. He switched channels. Sorensen, Patel, Okafor. We need the Phoenix ready for immediate launch. Get to the hangar bay now. As the team scrambled to arm themselves and secure the warship, an incoming video call blinked urgently on Stephen's wrist communicator. It was Admiral Jameson, his brow furrowed with concern. Captain, we have a situation. Those Elysian infiltrators are part of something bigger. They're trying to destabilize the Council and reignite the war. Stephen gritted his teeth. I knew that bastard Quasar was trouble. What's their play? Quasar's not just a spy. He's a high-ranking officer with connections to an Elysian faction that wants to break the treaty. If they get their hands on the Phoenix's plans, it could shift the balance of power and give them the edge they need to strike. The weight of the revelation settled heavily on Stephen's shoulders. The stakes were even higher than he'd realized. What are your orders, sir? Evacuate the facility and destroy the prototype. We can't risk it falling into their hands. Stephen balked at the idea. With all due respect, Admiral, the Phoenix is our best hope of maintaining peace. If we destroy it, we lose our deterrent. I have another proposal. I'm listening. Let me take the warship up. We can engage the Elysian fleet gathering near Earth's orbit and show them we mean business. Admiral Jameson hesitated, the seconds ticking by. Finally, he nodded. Very well, Captain, but you'll be on your own until we can send backup. Godspeed. Stephen rallied his team, hastily reviewing launch procedures and battle strategies. Just as they were about to board the Phoenix, an explosion rocked the command center. Quasar burst through the smoke, flanked by heavily armed Elysian soldiers. Gunfire erupted as Stephen and his crew dove for cover, returning fire in a desperate attempt to hold the line. Sparks flew and alarms blared. In the midst of the chaos, Stephen lunged for the central console, his fingers flying across the keys as he transferred the warship's schematics to a secure off-site server. With a final keystroke, he initiated the launch sequence. The ground rumbled as the Phoenix's engines roared to life. Stephen and his team raced to the ascending warship, dodging enemy fire and leaping aboard just as the access ramp began to close. As they strapped into their stations, the Phoenix tore free from its underground berth, bursting forth from the hidden facility like a fiery bird of prey. Stephen gripped the helm controls, his eyes narrowing as the vastness of space enveloped them. In the distance, the menacing shapes of Elysian battlecruisers loomed, poised to strike. The fate of Earth and the fragile peace between worlds now rested on the shoulders of Stephen and his crew, the last bastion of hope against the gathering storm. As the Phoenix hurtled through the blackness of space, a massive shape loomed in the distance, growing larger by the second. It was an Elysian warship, bristling with weapons and easily dwarfing the human vessel. "Evasive maneuvers," Stephen shouted, his hands flying over the controls. "Activate the cloaking device." The crew sprang into action, their fingers dancing across consoles as they worked to outmaneuver the enemy ship. A low hum filled the bridge as the experimental cloaking technology came online, and the Phoenix shimmered out of existence, vanishing from both visual and sensor detection. On the Elysian warship, confusion reigned. The commander stared at the empty expanse of space where the human ship had been moments before, his brow furrowed in disbelief. Taking advantage of the enemy's disorientation, Stephen initiated a series of complex tactical maneuvers. The Phoenix darted and wove around the larger vessel, its superior speed and agility allowing it to stay one step ahead of the Elysian crew's attempts to track it. "Target their weapons systems and engines," Stephen commanded, his voice steady despite the tension that thrummed through the ship. The human crew worked with precision and skill, their weapons finding the weak points in the Elysian ship's defenses. Explosions bloomed across the enemy vessel's hull as its weapons arrays and propulsion systems were systematically disabled. Just as the Elysian commander was about to order a desperate counterattack, a fleet of human reinforcements burst out of hyperspace led by the imposing figure of Admiral Jameson's flagship. Faced with overwhelming odds, the Elysian commander had no choice but to order a retreat. The once mighty warship limped away, trailing smoke and debris as it struggled to escape the battlefield. "Well done, Captain," Admiral Jameson said, his image appearing on the Phoenix's view screen. "You've proven the worth of both your ship and your crew." But before Stephen could respond, an urgent distress signal cut through the celebratory atmosphere. It was from the Galactic Council, and the news it carried was grim. Quasar, the Elysian spy, had escaped Earth and was now holding the Council representatives hostage at their headquarters. The Elysian radicals were demanding the surrender of the Phoenix and its technological secrets, threatening to execute the hostages one by one if their demands were not met. Admiral Jameson's face grew somber as he absorbed the information. He knew that capitulating to the radicals' demands would only embolden them further, leading to more violence and instability throughout the galaxy. "Captain," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of responsibility, "I have a new mission for you. We need you to lead a covert strike team to infiltrate the Council headquarters, rescue the hostages, and capture Quasar. The fate of the galaxy may well rest on your shoulders." Stephen nodded, his eyes hardening with determination. "I understand, Admiral. My team and I will not fail." As the communication ended, Stephen turned to his crew, the men and women who had fought beside him through thick and thin. "Gather our best," he said. "We have a mission to plan." Stephen and his strike team boarded a sleek, matte black shuttle, its angular lines and low profile designed for stealth. As the Phoenix's hangar bay doors slid open, the shuttle slipped out into the void, its engines barely a whisper, as it sped towards the Galactic Council's headquarters. The massive space station loomed ahead, a sprawling complex of interconnected modules and docking bays. As they approached, Stephen's brow furrowed. A network of sensor drones encircled the station, their scanners sweeping the surrounding space for any signs of intrusion. "Quasar's not making this easy," muttered Sergeant Hawkins, Stephen's second-in-command. Stephen's fingers flew across the shuttle's control panel, his eyes narrowing as he analyzed the drone network's code. "I think I can create a blind spot," he said, his voice tight with concentration. "Just need to find the right frequency." Moments later, the sensor drones flickered, their scanners momentarily disabled. Stephen gunned the engines and the shuttle darted through the gap, sliding into a secluded docking bay on the station's underside. As the team disembarked, weapons at the ready, Stephen divided them into two groups. "Hawkins, take Lee, Nguyen, and Patel. Find the hostages and get them to safety. The rest of you, with me. We're going after Quasar." The group split up, moving swiftly through the station's maze-like corridors. Stephen led his team towards the council chambers, their footsteps echoing on the metal grating. Suddenly a hail of plasma bolts sizzled through the air, forcing them to take cover. A squad of Elysian soldiers, their armor emblazoned with Quasar's insignia, had ambushed them from a connecting passageway. Stephen and his team returned fire, the confined space lit by the flashing muzzles of their pulse rifles. The Elysians were well trained, but Stephen's team had the edge in both equipment and skill. One by one, the enemy soldiers fell, until only the eerie silence of the station remained. Pressing forward, they reached the council chambers. The doors were sealed, but a few well-placed breaching charges made short work of the obstacle. They stormed inside, weapons leveled, to find Quasar standing at the center of the room, a cruel smile on his lips. "Surrender, Quasar," Stephen demanded, his rifle aimed squarely at the Elysian's chest. Quasar laughed, a harsh grating sound. He raised his hand, revealing a small cylindrical device clutched in his fingers. "I think not, Captain. This dead man's switch is linked to enough explosives to turn this station into a debris field. Drop your weapons, or I'll release my grip and we all die together." Stephen hesitated, his mind racing. Then his eyes fell on the neural disruptor clipped to his belt, a device designed to jam the signals from Elysian brain implants. In one fluid motion, he drew the disruptor and activated it, aiming the beam directly at Quasar. The Elysian stiffened, his eyes going wide as the disruptor's pulse interfered with his implants. In that moment of confusion, Stephen's team surged forward, tackling Quasar to the ground and wrenching the dead man's switch from his grasp. As they secured the prisoner, Hawkins's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, we've got the hostages, heading back to the shuttle now." "Good work," Stephen replied. "We've got Quasar. Meet you at the extraction point." They marched Quasar through the station's corridors, their weapons trained on his back. As they approached the docking bay, the shuttle came into view, its engines already humming with power. But before they could board, a squadron of Elysian ships dropped out of hyperspace, their hulls bristling with weapons. Stephen's heart sank as he realized they were loyal to Quasar's faction. Just as the Elysian ships moved to attack, a massive shape eclipsed the stars. The Phoenix, its hull gleaming in the starlight, surged forward, placing itself between the shuttle and the enemy ships. On the Phoenix's bridge, Admiral Jameson's voice boomed across the comm channels. "All ships, this is Admiral Jameson of the Earth Fleet. Stand down immediately or we will be forced to engage." The Elysian ships hesitated, their commanders weighing the odds. The Phoenix's advanced weapons systems, now fully operational, made a formidable deterrent. Seizing the opportunity, Stephen and his team boarded the shuttle, pushing Quasar ahead of them. As the hatch sealed behind them, the pilot engaged the thrusters, and the small craft rocketed away from the station. The Phoenix's guns lit up the void, sending searing beams of energy tearing through the Elysian ships. The enemy vessels scattered, their hulls scorched and battered as the human warship pressed its advantage. In a matter of moments, the battle was over. The Elysian ships limped away, their crews desperate to escape the Phoenix's wrath. On the shuttle, Stephen allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. The hostages were safe, Quasar was in custody, and the Phoenix had proven itself in combat. As the Phoenix and its escort of Allied ships returned to Earth, the planet erupted in celebration. Massive crowds gathered in cities across the globe, cheering as the heroic crew disembarked from their vessel. Stephen, his face weary but proud, was instantly surrounded by a throng of reporters and well-wishers. In the days that followed, the Phoenix was put on display, a shining beacon of human achievement. Dignitaries from the Galactic Council arrived to personally congratulate Stephen and his team, praising their bravery and skill in the face of overwhelming odds. But even as the celebrations continued, a sense of unease began to grow. Quasar, now in a secure holding facility, was proving to be a troublesome prisoner. He sneered at his interrogators, his eyes gleaming with a malevolent light. It was during one of these interrogations that the truth finally came out. Under the influence of a powerful truth serum, Quasar revealed the full extent of the Elysian radicals' plan. The capture of the Phoenix's schematics had only been the beginning. The real goal was to use that technology to construct a weapon of unimaginable destructive power, a device capable of annihilating entire worlds. The interrogators listened in horror as Quasar described the secret base where this doomsday weapon was being built. Hidden deep within Elysian space, the facility was already operational, the weapon nearing completion. The news sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. An emergency session was called, and the decision was unanimous. The Elysian base had to be destroyed no matter the cost. Stephen, his promotion to captain fast-tracked in light of the crisis, found himself once again in command of the Phoenix. As he stood on the bridge, staring out at the gathered fleet of human and allied ships, he felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. The journey to the secret base was tense, the crew of the Phoenix working around the clock to prepare for the coming battle. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Elysian system, they were met with a sight that chilled them to the bone. The Elysians had been expecting them. A vast armada of warships, bristling with weapons, hung in space before the base, and surrounding the facility itself was a shimmering energy shield, a nearly impenetrable barrier. The battle was joined in a flash of weapons fire and explosions. The Phoenix and its allies fought valiantly, but the Elysians were putting up a fierce resistance. Ships on both sides were torn apart, the debris field growing larger with each passing minute. On the bridge of the Phoenix, Stephen gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles white. They were taking heavy damage, the ship's shields straining under the onslaught. He knew they couldn't keep this up for long. And then, in a moment of terrible clarity, he saw the only path forward. The energy shield around the base was too strong, the Elysian fleet too numerous. There was only one way to ensure the destruction of the doomsday weapon. Stephen opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, this is Captain Stephen of the Phoenix. I am ordering a full retreat. Get clear of the blast zone." There was a moment of confused silence, then a cacophony of protests. But Stephen cut them off. "That's an order. Evacuate the Phoenix. I'll take it from here." His crew, understanding dawning in their eyes, began to file off the bridge. Some clasped his shoulder as they passed. Others simply nodded. Respect and sorrow mingled in their expressions. Soon, Stephen was alone. He input a series of commands into the navigational computer, plotting a course directly for the heart of the Elysian base. Then, with a deep breath, he engaged the engines. The Phoenix, battered but unbowed, surged forward, its prow aimed like a spear at the shimmering shield. Stephen watched the distance counter tick down, his heart pounding in his chest. At the last possible moment, he whispered a silent prayer and closed his eyes. The Phoenix struck the shield in a blinding flash of light. For a heartbeat, it seemed as though the barrier would hold. Then, with a roar that shook the stars, the shield shattered, and the Phoenix plunged into the heart of the base. The explosion was titanic, a searing ball of plasma that engulfed the facility, the doomsday weapon and the Elysian fleet in one fell swoop. The shockwave raced outward, rocking the Allied ships even as they fled. When the chaos finally subsided, all that remained was a field of glowing debris, and the fading echo of Stephen's sacrifice. In the days that followed, the galaxy mourned. Stephen was posthumously awarded the highest honors, his name spoken with reverence by all who had known him. The Phoenix, now little more than a legend, became a symbol of humanity's unwavering commitment to peace and justice. The Elysian radicals, their leadership destroyed and their plan in ruins, quickly crumbled. But even as the galaxy celebrated their defeat, there was a sense that this was not the end. The scars of the conflict ran deep, and the trust between species had been shaken to its core. As the dust settled, a new generation of leaders, both human and alien, stepped forward. United by Stephen's sacrifice, they vowed to build a future defined not by suspicion and hostility, but by cooperation and understanding. It would be a long road, fraught with challenges and setbacks. But as they looked to the stars, they knew that Stephen's legacy would guide them, a shining beacon in the darkness. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.